Good morning, everybody. We're going to start in a couple of minutes. I'm not used to using Instagram, so if you all can hear me, could somebody please Instagram chat me or wave so that I know that you can hear. There's a wave. Thank you from Miss TJ Romeo. Happy Friday. Indeed. Another wave. Thank you. Morgan Robb. Hello. Okay, so I'm going to read a book today called Because Amelia Smiled. It's by David Ezra Stein. But I'm going to wait until exactly 10 o'clock to get started. And as you can see behind me, it is indeed a beautiful day in the neighborhood, although we've had lots of rain lately. Our crepe myrtle looks more like a weeping crepe myrtle because of all the rain that's gotten on top of the flowers. But they'll come back even stronger. So it's 10 o'clock. It's time to start reading our book. So our book today is Because Amelia Smiled, and it's by David Ezra Stein. And that's Amelia up on her father's shoulders, going for a walk with folks from the neighborhood. Because Amelia Smiled. I think it's set in New York City. That looks a little bit like New York City to me. And then here's a real busy picture. Lots of going on, lots of buildings, lots of cars. Lots of cars always reminds me of New York City. Because Amelia Smiled by David Ezra Stein. Because Amelia smiled coming down the street. And there's Amelia in the rain. It's really heavy rain with her mom and dad holding hands because you want to be safe. And it's raining, and she's smiling, and such a big smile on her face, having a good time. Because Amelia smiled coming down the street, Mrs. Higgins smiled too. You see Mrs. Higgins, who saw Amelia running down the street in the rain with her parents, and she smiled, and then she smiled too. She and her cat are looking out the window. And because Mrs. Higgins smiled too, she thought of her grandson, Lionel, in Mexico, and she baked some cookies to send to him because Mrs. Higgins liked to bake cookies. So you can see here Mrs. Higgins baking cookies, and I think that's a picture of her grandson. So because Amelia smiled, Mrs. Higgins smiled. She thought of her grandson who lived all the way in Mexico, and she baked some cookies to send to him. And when the cookies got to Mexico, Lionel ate one of the cookies, and he decided to share with the rest of his class. So there, up here, is Lionel, her grandson, in Mexico. He was a teacher, and he's eating one of the cookies. And he was going to share it with the rest of his class. And he was teaching them English songs about cookies. So there's Lionel playing his guitar and teaching his class in Mexico English songs about cookies. He was a teacher. Teaching is a very, very important job. And because Lionel taught his class a song, one of his students who was a kickboxer, Sensacio Golpez, decided to be a teacher too. Sometimes when we have really good teachers, we want to be good teachers, and that's a great thing. She had her cousin record her in the plaza and put a video online. So there is Sensacio Golpez, and you can see from the move she's doing that she's a kickboxer. And so because of her teacher, Lionel, she had a good teacher, she wanted to be a teacher. I don't know what kind of cookies they were. She had her cousin record her in the plaza and put the video online. So there, she's got her cousin with the camera recording her doing some moves in the plaza right in the center of Mexico City. And they put it online. And guess what? I mean, the great thing when you put on things online these days, anybody anywhere can see them. And Zesta Crump and her ballet club in England saw their video and decided to add some new moves to their Goodwill recital. So there is Zesta Crump with the camera and her friends in their ballet class. There's one stretching. And they decided to add some new moves to their recital from the kickboxing. I don't know if I've ever seen kickboxing moves in ballet. And their performance was in Israel, not in England. So they went all the way from England to Israel. And while they were giving their performance, over there, their performance, in the audience was Katz Bluberman, who was only 4 years old. He was in the audience, and he decided he liked dancing after all. There's Klotz right there, watching intently as the ballerinas are also doing kickboxing moves. How creative. And so Katz, when it was his bedtime, he danced for his little brother Ichabod and helped put him to sleep. And because Katz danced him to sleep, Ichabod slept all the night through. If any of you have little brothers or sisters, you know how great it is when they sleep all the night through, because that doesn't always happen for little people. And so there he is holding his brother, Katz with his brother Ichabod. And there is Ichabod getting a good night's sleep. We all need good night's sleeps. In the apartment next door, Betty Marlinspike, the glamorous Roomba queen, she got a great night's sleep. She probably didn't have many because Ichabod didn't sleep well all the time, I guess. And she woke up in a good mood, and she took her band to get their hair done. So is it Betty? Yes, Betty Marlinspike, waking up to a beautiful day, and she's had a wonderful sleep, so she feels great. What a lovely apartment. I think that's probably a picture of her, a painting maybe. So she's waking up, she's feeling so good, and so she was going to take her band to get their hair done. Now remember, they are in Israel, and so she decided to take the band to get their hair done all the way in Paris, France. I'm going to take a globe later and I'll show you how far these places are from each other. So there the band is getting their hair done in Paris. Wow, that's pretty exotic. The band felt so fancy, they gave a free show on the Pont Neuf, which is one of the bridges in Paris, on the barge below. Gregor, the ex-clown, listened and sighed. Their love song, Con Corazon Intacto, reminded him of his old flame, the amazing Phyllis, who lived in Positano, Italy. So, there they are, up on the bridge giving the concert, and I think down below on the boat is the clown, the ex-clown, Gregor, and he's thinking of Phyllis, who lives all the way in Italy. The next morning, he bought a bouquet of flowers to send to her with a note that said, "Phyllis, after all these years, will you marry me?" There he is, buying the beautiful bouquet of flowers from the flower seller on the street. And there's a picture of the street in Paris with probably his bicycle. He probably rode the bicycle to get the flowers. Got to be careful carrying all those flowers on the bike, but they're just beautiful. And he sent them to Phyllis and asked her to marry him. Phyllis was so happy she threw roses from a high wire. She was caught on film by a TV crew that was doing a story on stray cats. And you can tell that she may have been in the circus as well. Look at her on that high wire. in Positano, Italy, which I think is right on the beautiful ocean. Look, she's tossing roses, and you can see the film crew down below. They were doing a story on stray cats, but they saw this woman up above on the high wire, and they just had to take a picture. And they took pictures of her. And because they took the pictures of her in the story on stray cats, back in New York, which is where we started the story, Lydia Furtado saw Phyllis on TV while making pizzas on Carmine Street. So here's Lydia. She's making pizzas. There's some people eating in the restaurant, and you can see up here, they're watching the TV show, and they see Phyllis throwing the roses. And she's smiling. On the subway home, she began a scarf of roses for her niece, Pia Maria. She sat across from Pigeon Man Jones. He watched her and remembered his dear old grandma who loved to knit. So there's Pia on the subway in New York knitting, and she's got such a great big smile on her face. And there's Pigeon Man Jones, and he's remembering his grandmother who used to knit, and that brings a smile to his face. When he got back to his rooftop and let his pigeons out, he wondered if maybe somehow wherever Grandma was, she could see them. So he's on the rooftop where he keeps the pigeons, and he's let them all out. And he's hoping that maybe his grandma could see them. And he's thinking, he's got a smile on his face because he's thinking about his grandma. And because Pigeon Man Jones let his birds out, see, he let the birds out, Amelia saw them. And when Amelia saw them, she smiled. Isn't that wonderful? Somebody smiled, and that smile traveled through different people all the way around the world. And it came back and gave her yet another reason to smile. So this is the book, Because Amelia Smiled, by David Ezra Stein. And because we went so many places, I'm going to pull my globe over here. Can we see this? Yeah, we can see this. I don't know if I can do this backwards. And so up here's America. And the story starts in New York City. And then it goes to Mexico. And then it goes over to, I think it goes to England. Let me see if we can get this in the middle. Then it goes down to Israel, which is all the way over here. And then I think it goes to France, which is over here in Paris. And then it goes down to Italy. And then it goes back to New York City. And see, isn't it great how we can take smiles and move them all around the world? Now, I forgot to do something in the beginning, and that was introduce myself. So my name is Chapman Taylor, and I'm a board member of Flock. But I also work for a company called the Capital Group in investment management, and I travel a lot. And so I've been to many countries on this world, and I can tell you it is such a wonderful world, particularly when you can see people smile and carry those smiles. And I'm right now, where am I? You keep going. Is this America? I'm in Falls Church, Virginia, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. But I used to live in a place called Samoa, which is somewhere in the middle of the South Pacific. I was a Peace Corps volunteer. And then for a long time, I lived in a place called Singapore, which is right down here below Malaysia and above Indonesia. That's where I met my wife, and we had all our children born. And then we moved all the way back here to Falls Church, Virginia. So that's our story for the day. And I'd love to answer any questions that anybody has. And again, I apologize, I'm not the best person on Instagram. But please, whatever it is, chat with me to give me any questions you want. And if we run out of questions, we'll go on with the rest of our day. And not only thank me, thank you all for listening. This is my new t-shirt. If you've seen the movie about Mr. Rogers, it's such a wonderful movie. I got my T-shirt from a company called Teespring. I was on Facebook looking at some of my friends and what they're up to, and I got an advertisement about Teespring, and this T-shirt came up, and I love the T-shirt because this is Mr. Rogers, and Mr. Rogers, his first name is Fred, which is my first name and also my father's first name, and then this is Officer Clemens. And this was at a difficult time in America where there was some tension, but it was great that that Mr. Rogers invited Officer Clemens. They could sit down and they could both put their feet in the pool together. They had a great conversation. I'm reading that Sage is ready for cookies and milk. Yay! How did I choose the book? You know, my children are all kind of in their mid-20s, and so it's been a long time since I've had kids' book. So I actually asked the flock staff what would be a good book to read, and they gave me several choices. And because this one had a lot of globetrotting, and I've been a big traveler my life, I decided this would be a great book. And also, I think smiles are such a great medicine, and they're clearly a medicine that we need at this time in the world. And so if you all could take a smile today and just give it to somebody you love and make their day better, and even give a smile to somebody who's a complete stranger, because you never know how those smiles can really have an impact and travel all around the world. Any last questions? Okay, well, have a great day, have a great Friday, and remember, next week, 10 a.m. on Friday, there'll be another person to read a story for Love of Children for Flock. Oh, somebody asked, do I have a favorite country I visited? Actually, my favorite country is Indonesia, which is in Asia. It's a fascinating country. So somebody said smiles like laughter are contagious, and they're contagious in a good way. We need something that's contagious in a good way. Thank you, Ms. TJ Romeo. So let's everybody both smile as much as we can and laugh as much as we can. And I know sometimes it's hard to smile and sometimes it's hard to laugh, but let's do our best because there's always some good in there somewhere. Have a great Friday. Bye-bye.